I distinctly recall asking you to fix the submarine, not turn it into a cheese grater.
It'll pop out, though you might want to get in a diving suit.
Pete's saying, Captain, do you have any spare welding tanks? Wait, I thought you had them.
Want to traumatize yourself and company by riding a barely sealed deodorant can straight into the abyss? Check. Want to get a lifelong fear of the ocean that will prevent you from ever enjoying a snorkel in deep water again? Check. Want to meet the scum of humanity on public servers that will exist solely to troll you into oblivion? Also check. If so, then congratulations. Barotrauma is just the game for you. The short of it is that you are a small but very important part of a much larger operation, and that you need to work together with your fellow man to survive the harshest of encounters, with the end goal of diving ever deeper into the unknown. By far the most common comparison this game has is that of Space Station 13, and the similarities are quite obvious at a surface level. But to be honest, I consider the modern state of Barotrauma to be closer to a game like RimWorld than Space Station 13. A better mindset is to think of Barotrauma as two completely separate games you could choose to play. On the one hand, it is a multiplayer-centric game that excels at roleplay and player freedoms, where you can join a random crew and immerse yourself in a small but very important role of your choosing aboard the submarine. But on the other hand, it can be a sim management game with extensive perk trees, a metric shit ton of crafting, and a fully playable single-player or co-op campaign. With that out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. This is Europa, the smallest of Jupiter's 4 Galilean moons. Overall, not much to write home about. That is, until humanity discovered a massive subterranean sea deep under the surface. In response, Earth promptly instituted a mass colonization push to avoid the mess they had made for themselves back home. The effort was long and hard on account of Jovian radiation blasting the crap out of the surface, but colonists were eventually able to make a permanent foothold deep under the seas of the hostile moon. Yet as the colonies grew, they became increasingly self-sufficient and disillusioned with Earth, and soon the relationship would break down entirely. Be it by choice or some unknown apocalypse, Earth is gone, and Europa is left to fend for itself. In short, an autocratic regime currently controls everything with an iron fist, a resistance front is in the process of growing into an outright revolt, people are going utterly insane by worshipping some kind of eldritch abomination, and there is a super scary cult on the loose doing some very heretical things. You start the game smack bang in the middle of this mess as an enlisted crew member aboard a submarine. What you do from here is all up to you. The gameplay loop is as follows. A submarine crewed with any number of unlucky idiots needs to proceed from one side of the map to the other. Unfortunately, between here and there are any number of terrifying monstrosities that will absolutely ruin your day. It is your goal as a player to place yourself into a particular role aboard the submarine, with each role having specific duties that, if completed in a timely manner, will eventually lead to the sub successfully making it to its destination. Notice how I said "if completed" in that prior sentence. Has a rather ominous ring to it, doesn't it? That's because this game is going to do its absolute damnedest to stop you from performing said duties, be it in the form of random events, unsalvageable situations, other players, or your own stupidity, plain and simple. So, no matter what happens, you better keep wrenching that pipe, fueling that reactor, firing those guns, or keeping your hands on the goddamn wheel, because failure on any player's part will spell utter disaster. Now that you know how to play, let's run through the different job types that you will need to choose from. Starting from the least important, we have the Assistant. Only two kinds of people play the Assistant. Those who have no idea what the fuck they are doing, or those that should get a key designation and get locked up by the SCP Foundation. Fair warning, if you decide to play the Assistant, you're gonna be at the bottom of the food chain, with the worst gear and the most crap jobs imaginable. You see those empty oxygen tanks everyone keeps leaving around the place? You gotta lug it to the oxygen generator. You see those diving suits? When shit hits the fan, you ain't getting one. As if that was not enough, this job has some of the weirdest perks in the whole game, with most of it focusing on being beneficial to the crew as a whole despite not being very skilled or knowledgeable about the game, but the rest of the tree turning you into a psychological hazard to the rest of the crew's sanity. I don't like clowns. If you turn out to not be a troll, the Assistant can later on specialize as a Grey Shirt, which focuses on being a monster tamer, or an Apprentice, which can greatly augment the performance of other crew members of your choosing. If being a glorified intern does not appeal to you, the assistant is most definitely not for you. But if you want to come to grips with the game without having any major responsibilities, or just drive your coworkers utterly insane, this is just the job for you. Moving on to the second least important, we have the mechanic. The best way to summarize this class is that you are a barely literate redneck who flunked high school and carries around a Leatherman with him absolutely everywhere he goes. You don't always know how something works, but you can sure as shit fix it once it stops, using nothing but super glue, baking soda, and a bit of duct tape for good measure. Sure, you ain't all that special up in the noggin, but in the world of fancy pastries, you are a goddamn brick. A good mechanic is usually about 50% of the reason why any submarine manages to survive any catastrophe whatsoever. So it goes without saying, your entire job is to fix anything that even looks like it's going to break in the next 5 minutes. Bad news, it means you're gonna be running up and down like a headless chicken, plugging holes and getting electrocuted because your electrical skill is just not high enough to do it safely, and OSHA is nothing but a recommendation. So how come this class is not more important? Well, it's because you are the textbook definition of the jack of all trades. Able to do everything, but nothing exceptionally so. Perk-wise, your kit mostly revolves around making you more likely to survive the dangerous as hell job of keeping your ship in operational condition, with you later being able to specialize into the Scrapper tree, which focuses on materials and crafting, the Machinist tree, which specializes in technical repairs, or the Brawler tree, which encourages your violent tendencies and makes you harder to kill. But by far the largest responsibility of any god-fearing mechanic is the stockpile of welding fuel tanks you will hoard like a dragon. Not only do you need to keep your eye on who gets them during an emergency, but it is your job to make sure that the ship is always stocked when you get into port. So I recommend keeping a lookout for cheap ethanol, which you can use to recycle your empty tanks for a fraction of the price. Overall, the mechanic is a very busy job and you're gonna have a lot on your plate at any given time. If running up and down fixing the same shit over and over again does not sound like your thing, best move along. For our next job, we have the engineer. No matter how engineer or how NG far, or NG wherever the fuck you are, I dare you to touch that reactor without express permission. If the reactor does not set you on fire, the engineer sure as hell will. You see, the engineer here has got one of the most important roles on the whole damn submarine. To babysit that reactor like it is a kid with autism, but like a really, really buff kid. Because, just like an aspie such as myself, the reactor desires to undergo a nuclear meltdown at the slightest of provocations. It should be noted that the reactor does have an automated setting. However, that infernal lever does come at a rather great cost. Generally, automatic control is much slower to respond to power spikes and is also quite inefficient. So not only do you burn more fuel, but you also get less juice for it. But before you ask, I am not gonna cover the use of auto reactors. Just no! Besides the reactor, the engineer is pretty much just a qualified version of the mechanic, able to fix most things, but not quite as sturdy. However, what you don't have in raw might, you will well make up for in sheer intellect, with most of your perks making you really good, yet really smug at everything you do. Like, good lord. Engineers can train skills at truly absurd rates, and when combined with a good captain, even the stupidest of engineers can train themselves into game soloing maniacs that will put half of the crew out of a job. That said, the engineer can choose to specialize in a wide variety of roles, such as weapons engineer, which allows you to throw ethics out of the window and make weapons of mass destruction. Electrician, which makes you even better at keeping electricity from leaking out of the boat, and physicist, which is straight up just Gordon Freeman, crowbar and all. However, your chief duty as a good engineer is to make sure that there are enough fuel rods for the next mission. No matter how good the crew is and how smooth the mission goes, if you run out of fuel rods, it is the end of the line, my guy. Go Breaking Bad if you must, but the sub must have fuel rods. Reduce and recycle whenever possible, and everything will be alright. If the thought of you being a smug, self-important cave troll who gets mad at anyone else trying to fix the junction boxes gets you to half-mast, the engineer is just the class for you. And next we have the medic. Arguably the most critical yet oh so brain-numbingly boring role the game has to offer. So by taking the average, it ends up somewhere about in the middle. So why is this job so important? Well, a single well-equipped medic is the only thing standing between the longevity of the crew and a runaway husk infection. Like seriously, not having some kind of medic is practically a death sentence. Unfortunately, by the time you actually get to do something rather exciting, you will probably have died of boredom. My honest opinion, I'd much rather just play a security officer with the first aid perk. But if you are able to survive the monotony of playing school nurse to a bunch of idiots, the medic can later on gain access to some real spicy stuff. Specifically, the xenologist tree.
Xenos.
Ever look at yourself in the mirror and think, damn, I sure wish I could hit like a runaway train? That, my friends, is 99% of the reason why anyone ever plays the medic. Helping your fellow man out of the goodness of your own heart? Get that shit out of here. You should know damn well that the only reason I play medic is to perfect myself into a genetically superior being capable of yeeting myself into the void without any fear of the pressure. We are not the same. But if you happen to be, just per se, a complete idiot, you could instead go with the field medic, which just makes you even better at your job, or a mad chemist, so deranged that even the father of chemical warfare, Fritz Hauber, would have second thoughts. Sold yet? If not, then this class is definitely not for you. Because by far the worst part of the medic is that you are responsible for the medical reserves on the ship. And when supplies are running low, you are responsible for making the tough decisions regarding who gets it. All fun and games until there is only one dose of calcinide left on the whole damn ship.
Oh crap, I've been infected. Someone help!
On to the security officer. Regardless of whether the trader game mode is turned on or not, these are the guys you need to be very aware of. Security here are guaranteed to hold your pathetic lives in their mighty hands, be they locked in melee combat with an abomination, or actively bashing your brains out with a baton. I'm not one for politics regarding police brutality, but I'd much rather have another meat shield between me and the fish hungrily tearing towards me. So, what does security have to offer you? Besides an inflated sense of self-importance, quite a lot actually. With the majority of your perks allowing you to dish out a whole ass helping of whoop-ass without dying in return. One has not beheld power until you see a mad lad solo an eldritch monstrosity with nothing but 2 daggers and enough drugs to overdose a whale. But if getting up close and personal with absolutely anything and everything does not appeal to you, there are always guns for you to use instead. And if that does not appeal to you either, there are always the big-ass cannons bolted onto the outside of the ship. For your specializations, you have a wide array of really nice jobs to choose from. With Frogman turning you into the Kool-Aid Man, bashing your way through hulls so fast they might as well be made of soggy paper. The Enforcer, which is so grizzled you can just kinda shrug off a mortal wound like the old Black Knight himself. And lastly, the Gunner, which plain and simple gives really good buffs that upgrade you from being a pistol-wielding plebeian to a Chad Xeno exterminator. Keep an eye out for steel bars and lead ore, which can be used to refill your spent coil gun magazines. And later on, be especially on the lookout for lithium ore, which can be used to jerry-rig pulse laser ammunition, since you are gonna need both in bulk. If being a stereotypical military grunt in a sci-fi movie appeals to you on a personality trait level, this class is right up your alley. And lastly, we arrive at the Captain, the most important yet dreaded class in the whole game. You see, the Captain is not just responsible for some petty little job aboard the submarine. You are the submarine.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
You hold the lives of every single member of the crew in your greasy hands, so when shit eventually goes south, you will unequivocally be held responsible. In short, you have the unenviable job of piloting the ship, calling out hostile targets, directing repair efforts, and generally just herding the bunch of angry cats that is the crew. Yep, it is just as bad as it sounds. Hell, 90% of the footage I recorded for this class was completely useless since it all consisted of me staring at the sonar and yelling at people. And as if the external threats were not bad enough, there is the ever-present possibility of your own crew getting bored and doing something really stupid. Such as rewiring the ship for shits and giggles, or getting you addicted to every single drug aboard the ship. So do carry a screwdriver and some antidotes around with you, just for security purposes. So, what are the benefits of this particular class? Well, the Captain here is some of the best buffs in the whole game, hands down. Playing without a Captain is not only stupid, but a 0 IQ move. Specialization-wise, the Captain has some real interesting choices to pick from. with the gunslinger tree channeling the sloshed Marty Robbins deep inside, enabling the armed and dangerous drunk you were always destined to be. The skipper tree, which buffs the crew even more than before by spiking their rations with cocaine. And the politician, which makes you so high and mighty that you can dish out chocolate coins to the crew for good behavior. Overall, the captain is not a slouch by any means, but the additional responsibilities does make it a lot less desirable to play than some of the other classes. If you can stomach that, then this is a great class to play. Okay, so this project is way behind schedule, so we're just gonna blast through the campaign real quickly. Yes, you are in fact correct. Once you finish a job specialization, you get to start another one. However, the sheer amount of playtime needed to finish one, let alone two perk trees is frankly so absurd that I consider it a lost cause. Just be fully aware that once you pick a specialization, you are stuck with it for your foreseeable playthrough. Get the Captain perk that increases the number of available special offers at vendors as soon as humanly possible. Since you're gonna be bargain hunting like the broke bitch, you absolutely are. Upgrade your ship's hull as soon as you can afford it, with both upgrades per tier resulting in a whopping 40% increase to the health rating of your armor. Note, this also unfortunately increases the amount of welding fuel needed to fix said armor, so you need to take that into account as well. This game is full to the brim of BS, and we're going to counter it with BS of our own. By BS, I mean bandages and saline. Because roughly 80% of medical emergencies can be stabilized by a dose of saline and bandages to stop it from leaking out. Just keep some of both on you at all times, and you can thank me later. Before taking any delivery quests, make sure that all your crate shelves are completely empty, because delivery quests fill all of the available space you have on the sub. Say it with me, boys. Available! The more you can carry, the more you get paid. The sonar is not just your friend. It is a beacon of light in a very dark world, which unfortunately happens to piss off everything within a 1 kilometer radius. Use it as sparingly as possible and use the directional ping for everything else. Upgrade your diving suits to combat diving suits as soon as you can manage, since they are much faster and provide much better stats all around. Harpoons are gonna be their best weapon for the early game. Since all you need is steel to make ammo for them, they are by far the cheapest option. However, there comes a point where they are nothing but a detriment and are best abandoned in lieu of better options. For the love of everything holy and unholy, whenever you go on an expedition, take wide-spectrum antibiotics with you. I don't care if you need to kill a medic for it, but you gotta have it. And the moment you spot any husk-infected enemies, preemptively inject that shit. Because when it comes to husk infections, prevention is way more financially viable than a cure. And that is it for Barotrauma, my friends. Thank you very much for watching to the end. Your support on these videos goes so much further than you could possibly ever know. For some of my more eagle-eyed subscribers, you might have noticed that the channel has been idle for almost 8 months and several of my videos are no longer available to watch. Well, long story short, YouTube nuked the channel, so I took down the offending videos to scrub them clean. Bad news, Uncle Murphy decided to pay a visit and my desktop decided to die a very spectacular death, which unfortunately resulted in the loss of practically everything related to this YouTube channel. Source files, music, audio, you name it. I had to salvage it piece by painful piece. Considering how much was lost and me living in a country where you can easily not have power for 6 hours a day, it is frankly a miracle that this video got finished at all. To be frank, if it were not for your comments and well-wishing in my time of suffering, this channel would probably have died a very pathetic death. Merry Christmas, my dudes. Thanks again for all the support you've given me, and I hope to see you around in the next one. Cheers.